Open your cerebral cortex and shift your lobes into upper beta phase, because you are going to have Bitcoin knowledge transmitted directly into your vestibulocochlear. Your host at Bitcoin Knowledge is Trace Mayer, an early Bitcoin advocate since it cost $0.25, but this is not intended to be investment advice. A doctor of jurisprudence, but this is definitely not legal advice. And an investor in core cryptocurrency infrastructure, including Armory, BitPay, Kraken, and Mitagio, but this is not a recommendation of those services. Here, you get fed via direct mind download with pure and free Bitcoin knowledge.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast. I got a special guest with us today, Reggie Middleton. Welcome, Reggie.
Thank you.
Now, you operate the Boom Bust blog, right?
Where I was, for 7 years, I had Boom Bust blog, which was a fundamental and global macro research analysis and opinion blog. Very recently, I've decided to wind down publication on there because I dove headfirst into the Bitcoin world.
You ain't got lost down the rabbit hole, huh?
Yeah.
Now, I'm really excited with this UltraCoin project that you've got going on. The website's ultra-coin.com, right?
Correct, ultra-coin.com. Now, to be clear, there is unfortunately an altcoin by a very similar name, ultracoin.net, and there is some confusion. So, to be clear, my company's name is Veritaseum. The product is UltraCoin, and the website is ultra-coin.com.
Okay, ultra-coin.com. Yeah, because, I mean, there have been all types of confusions. There's like an Ether coin with the Ethereum, but it's not related to it at all. So we want to make sure people go look at this. It's ultra-coin.com. Now, what is it that you're attempting to accomplish with this UltraCoin project?
What UltraCoin does is it's not a specific coin. It programs the Bitcoin protocol, the Bitcoin blockchain. So we take Bitcoins, we use the Bitcoin script, which is a programming language for Bitcoin, and we tell the Bitcoin to imitate the business functions of XYZ industry. And so the products are each industry that we go after, with the first industry being what we consider low-hanging fruit, and that's Wall Street. Wall Street's low-hanging fruit because for the last 30 years, despite dramatic increase in efficiencies and through technology such as the internet, Wall Street offerings have pretty much remained stagnant, while bonuses have been shooting through the roof in compensation. And offerings to the consumer, even though the productivity portion has been stagnant, the price has risen faster than practically any other consumable, including for the last 3 years faster than income itself.
Yeah, so we've got this Bitcoin. I like to say, we got gold, and gold is the same as it was 2,000 years ago. It's defined on the periodic table. So it's limited in amount, but it's not extensible. Then we got the dollar that's extensible but not limited in amount. And now we got Bitcoin that is extensible and limited in amount. So and by extensible, we mean that's like a software term. We can keep building or extending the software. We can build new features into it. And so with Bitcoin, we've got distributed consensus or distributed trust, and we've really got programmable trust. And that's what you're doing with UltraCoin, is you're extensifying, or you're building on using these features of Bitcoin's programmable trust to go after the low-hanging fruit of Wall Street. What do you exactly mean by that? Like, are we talking about like shares of stocks or bonds or like other financial instruments? Give us an example.
An example is you go to the website, you go to ultra-coin.com, you click download. You pick the platform of choice, Windows, Mac, Linux, or Android, and soon iOS. You download the appropriate wallet, and it's a Bitcoin wallet. It's just a uber smart Bitcoin wallet. You open it up, you throw your Bitcoin in, and then you can trade any among 75,000 plus securities, any asset class, from any location, on any exchange from around the world, 24 hours a day. And you trade it peer-to-peer. So you don't go through exchanges, you don't go through brokers, you don't go through Merrill Lynch, Citibank, New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ. You are taking Bitcoin, you are turning Bitcoin into a derivative representative of, say, pork bellies or gold or silver.
Or Apple
or
shares?
Apple stock,
Okay.
or IBM stock, or treasury bonds, or the Korean won, or the euro. You can actually trade pairs. You could go long or short, or you could do much more creative things. So instead of going long Apple stock, because you're bullish on Apple, you could go long Apple but short Samsung. So you receive Apple value, and this is called value trading, a new paradigm. You receive Apple value, and you pay Samsung value. And that's in the same contract. So at the end of the expiry, and you pick whatever expiration you want from seconds up until years, at the end of the expiry, as long as Apple did better than Samsung relatively, you profit. And you profit by the amount that it did better then.
So these are these like contracts for difference mainly?
Theoretically, they're swaps. Theoretically, they're swaps.
So they're
swapping value.
So they're functioning like swaps, and they settle into Bitcoin.
Right. Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out.
Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out.
Right.
So they all settle into Bitcoin. And how do you pull in the prices? Like, how do we know that the Apple value or the Samsung value is accurate?
The price is pulled in through our server. The server acts as an oracle, as defined in the Bitcoin white paper, and it gives the instructions to put the contract together, the smart contract, and it throws the price to the client. The client can also read the price independently itself from the source. So you can do your own audit. And one of the things that make this spectacular is that our server does not hold or touch any of the assets at all. So you have 400 Bitcoin in your wallet. I have 600 Bitcoin in our wallet. We decide to enter in a contract for 100 Bitcoin. None of that Bitcoin goes to our server. Our server doesn't have any control over it. You can offer our server the ability, using multi-sig, to put you into a contract if your wallet's not online. But because of the multi-sig authority, you still cannot abscond with it. You can't lock it up. You can't steal it. The contract is etched in stone. True zero trust. That is in contrast to token-based solutions, which basically rely on something besides a blockchain. When you rely on something besides a blockchain, you don't have zero trust. For example, we take you into a contract with me. You receive Apple, pay Samsung. I receive Samsung, pay Apple. We enter in the contract. 3 days later, there's an earthquake on the East Coast. Okay, you can simply hit a button, trace contract. It goes up to the blockchain and shows you exactly where the funds are sitting in the blockchain. You either always have it in your personal wallet, or theoretically the funds never leave your wallet, but they're locked up in the blockchain. Or you could go to the blockchain and see exactly where the funds are. There is no time when you don't have either control or full awareness of where the funds are.
So you're like using this, you're able to control the private keys. Your own.
Yeah, each user has their
each,
private keys.
Each individual is able to control their own private keys, but then enter into these smart contracts with other users, but do it in a complete peer-to-peer way.
Right.
So you're not going through like an E-Trade or an Ameritrade. I mean, you're going through the UltraCoin server, which is acting as the oracle to pull the price data, but you're not actually transferring any signing authority via the private keys to UltraCoin.
Right. You're not even going through UltraCoin. UltraCoin acts as basically the messenger, where it takes the information and throw the smart contract data to the users. Now, in that fashion, theoretically, you have to be online 24 hours a day to accept the contract. You can give UltraCoin servers the authority to hold one key out of a multi-sig. So if you're not online, but you say, we want to enter in this contract at these terms, the UltraCoin server can allow that contract to be entered into on your behalf. Okay, but only with the instructions that you give it. And those instructions are limited to only entering a contract. So UltraCoin, if the government decides to confiscate our servers, if we get hacked, if a virus attacks, we still don't have access and never wanted access to your funds. Your funds can never be taken, compromised, etc. You can have a worst case scenario where the deal is compromised and then you have a rollback to where you were in the beginning. So you don't lose your coins, but the particular subcontract if compromised, would roll back. An example of that compromise would be if you have a massive earthquake and everywhere that the UltraCoin servers happen to be
is
destroyed.
affected. Yeah.
And that's difficult if you design the servers correctly because you have geographic plus logical variety, dispersion, etc.
Now, you dropped a bomb that a lot of people might not have caught. You said, and this was a couple minutes ago, you said that the UltraCoin servers are acting as the oracle as talked about in the white paper. Mm-hmm. So you're saying that Satoshi envisioned things like this happening even when the white paper was originally written, even when Bitcoin was originally architected. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, let me tell you how I got started. I'm a finance guy. I'm a nerd. I'm a technologist, but I'm not an engineer, developer. I'm not a mathematician. I know math as it comes to spreadsheets, balance sheets, etc. One of my clients asked me to look into Bitcoin for 2 years, and I didn't. I should have, but I didn't.
You have a lot more Bitcoins if you did.
That is very true. But when I did, December 23rd of 2013, I took a look at it, and I realized the media is the media, so I wanted to go straight to the source. The first thing I did was look up the Bitcoin white paper. Once I read that you have a decentralized distributed architecture with its own rail, and you have the blockchain, and you could program the Bitcoin. Why isn't anybody doing this? So I called the different Bitcoin well-respected, I don't want to call authorities, but those who are well-respected in the Bitcoin community, and I asked them why, and I was getting various reasons. It's beta, etc. But there were examples of it out floating around that worked. Satoshi was talking directly to people such as myself. If you focus on the small account of value, which is what a Bitcoin is, or lowercase b, what other people call a currency, you're missing the entire point.
Yeah, because currency is just one application of how this new virtual commodity can actually be used or applied, right?
It's not even an application. It is the vehicle for communicating within the protocol. So that's like looking at the internet and thinking of packets, information packets, as what the internet is about. Most people don't even know what the information packets are, but even if you do, you realize the internet is so much greater than the information packets.
Exactly.
The actual packet that you use to ping.
Because you're just sending that packet over like TCP/IP, for example, but the internet's even larger than just TCP/IP.
Much larger in terms
larger.
of actual applied use.
Yeah, I mean we could apply MaidSafe across the quote unquote internet. We can apply a whole different range of protocols, and I mean Satoshi talked about this, how Bitcoin it's this virtual commodity where you're able to transfer value over a communications channel. So that's really what you're getting at, right? Like we're able to use these logical or physical communication channels to be transferring value. And now UltraCoin's getting into using that in a very novel and innovative way.
Right. In a way, it's the way it's always been done, basically derivatives, but it's using but it hasn't been done with distributed trust. Exactly.
Right?
And that's what's new. What we did was I created this from scratch to be 100% purely, they call it Bitcoin 2.0, but I disagree with that because Bitcoin is still in beta. Bitcoin's not even at 1.0 yet.
Bitcoin's not even 1.0.
I learned math, and I'm not good at math, believe it or not, but I know that 1 comes before 2. So before we get to 2, let's do 1 first.
Well, it depends. Non-real numbers, right?
But if you can get to, if you consider Bitcoin 2.0, this is a pure new paradigm solution and product. And so the swaps, the derivatives, the entire concept is based upon this particular technology. Wall Street is first. It's the low-hanging fruit. We have law, intellectual property, real estate, insurance, healthcare. We have an entire string of business plans and products in tow. We are writing patent applications behind us for protection because the industries that we're going after, and make no mistake, we're looking for pure disintermediation. We're taking the middleman that extracts rent without adding value, and we're eliminating the need. Not only technically eliminating the need for him, but we're marketing the fact that he is no longer necessary.
So, I mean, and there are a lot of different middlemen all throughout that chain. I mean, you've got regulators. I made the statement I think I was one of the first talking about moving just 1% of offshore tax haven bank account assets into Bitcoin would move the price to like $2.8 million per coin. Mm-hmm. When we're using if people use Bitcoin to trade, like you're talking about, and there's no centralized trust, it's all distributed trust. Like who sends you a 1099 or the other tax forms when you're trading in this manner, as opposed to trading on like E-Trade, for example?
Well, the laws, regulations have to be totally rewritten. They were written I compare it to transportation. You have traffic laws, parking permits, etc., that assume people will be driving cars or riding bicycles or driving a truck or motorcycle.
Yeah, what about a hover bike?
Right. You could think of in terms of a hover bike. You could think of interstellar space travel. You could think of interdimensional space travel. So what is the traffic ticket for going through dimension to dimension, going back in time? Now, it sounds like science fiction, except for the fact that you can now do that right now with Bitcoin. Not interdimensional travel, but you could do intercontinental.
Yeah, but by analogy.
Right. For instance, we take entire assets, and encapsulate the value into the blockchain. We don't take a token of the asset's value. We take the actual value of the asset and throw it into the blockchain. That changes the entire game. You have to rewrite the laws, you have to rewrite the concept behind the laws.
Well, and in a lot of ways, like the law is just getting rewritten, not in legal code, but in software code.
Right.
Because I mean, these contracts like execute. We've got terms. We've got ways for them to settle. We've got a medium for them to settle in.
And most importantly, they're unbreachable. Our slogan is the unbreakable promise, or in more legal terms, the unbreachable contract. If you have a contract that cannot be breached, you by default have no need for courts.
Enforcement, remedy.
Enforcement, administration, and remedy are all the same entity right now.
Let's see what. I think we've gone over UltraCoin. We've made a very good case about what it is, like proof of concept. Like we said, we're still in beta with Bitcoin itself. UltraCoin is extensifying or even building on top of that. I'd gotten an email a few weeks ago from Greg Maxwell. He's one of the Bitcoin core developers, and he asked me, what features would you like to see built into Bitcoin? So I'd like to ask you that question. What features would you like to see built into Bitcoin? Like what features need to be added to the actual core protocol that could make it more useful for some of these applications that you're talking about? I mean, you've put entire industries, like a lot of the entire function of the state. You're saying we could put into the blockchain. So, I mean, do we need anything done to the core protocol to make this possible, in your opinion? Like, I mean, what should we do?
Now, that's an interesting question. And believe it or not, nobody's ever posed it to me. The capability of Bitcoin as it stands right now, I'm not even aware, because the scripting language is a simple stack-based scripting language. But
it's been intentionally limited because we don't necessarily want to. I mean, we can't have.
It's non-Turing because you don't want loops.
Yeah, we don't want loops, and like things could get messy, and we don't want that to happen.
But even with the limitations, there's a lot you can do. Even though I am obviously biased, I feel that my particular product, our product, is one of the most advanced products out, and is using just the Bitcoin script. So with enough imagination plus intellectual capacity, you can do a lot with what's there. Probably. For number one, the biggest, the most important aspect that I'd like to see added would probably be messaging. Some type of messaging capability inherent within the Bitcoin protocol itself. So you can send explicit, direct, I don't even call it messages, but communications within the Bitcoin protocol.
So you mean something like what they're experimenting with over in BitMessage, for example?
Right, something like that. So you could have a Bitcoin transfer, or something very simple. You have a Bitcoin transfer. You could send an explicit message in the Bitcoin transfer. It can be attached to, let's say you have it hashed, you have it verified, so it can't be changed. Okay, so it could be a text message, and that message can be a set of instructions written in regular, plain, simple English or Japanese, etc., for the other side to receive. And you have a guaranteed reception, guaranteed transmission, and you have the inability to alter the message. That will go very far for the legal industry in terms of writing contracts, because not only do you have a smart contract that's enforced through software, but you actually have the interpretation in English. Now, you have limits in terms of, and I'm not a developer, but you have limits in terms of what you could stuff into the blockchain. But there are ways around that, especially if you have the ability to send a message. You can have each character represent, something else in terms of having I don't think how it's called, like
an object.
Yeah.
So that we're able to pull in a particular set of terms that are standardized.
Right, represented by.
And the software code's already written and standardized for all of that, and so
with messaging, that opens up the capability significantly. Now you can still do that, but the amount of thinking and coding that goes into it would be cut in, I'd say, a fifth.
Yeah, well, and that's what we really want to do is streamline, automate as much as we can, so that it frees up our human labor to be working on much more advanced things that require a little bit more of our creativity than just pushing paper around, right?
Hopefully positive things, You could free up, I anticipate about 50% of Wall Street labor, especially on the transactional, on the creative side, to be on the transactional side, to be non-existent within, I'd say, about 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, when we can put all that into the blockchain and automate it, we're not going to be needing to send around hundreds and hundreds of pages on all this stuff.
So what happens to those people? There are two things. They can take their intellectual capital, some of which is significant, and go into a different direction, or they can try and fight this innovation by using their intellectual capacity to muddy it, to create opacity versus transparency in pricing or in price discovery or anything else. Now, that works because coupled with a very strong marketing engine is called innovation, or the discussion we hear what Apple is doing with Apple Pay. But Apple Pay is not new. It is
not even
not pervasive,
innovative, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it is nice that they're starting to attempt to disintermediate the Visas and the MasterCards and the payment system, because they do tokenize the credit card, and that token could then represent Bitcoins instead of credit cards very easily. So I think it's definitely kind of a step in the right direction. But layering on more fees in the payments space is just
well, it should be anathema to the banks. The banks are literally paying an extra fee for absolutely nothing. They already interface directly with the consumer. So to pay Apple 5 basis points, 15 basis points to interface with the consumer, which they already have, seems nonsensical. The reason they're doing it is Apple, very good at marketing, scares the banks saying you're going to be left out. The banks could take the same 15 basis points and create their own, Bitcoin solution such as I'm doing, but that's not what happens.
That's presuming that the banks are capable at creating anything new. I mean, what's been the greatest innovation in the credit card or debit card market in 50 years?
The bonus.
We can put our own picture on our cards, right? That's the biggest innovation we've got. I mean, maybe bonus points or something.
No, bonus as in compensation bonus, quarterly.
Well, yeah, they get their bonuses. Yeah. Well, and ironically, I'd always thought that big retailers, actually, it was cheaper. They got more economies of scale. But I think that there's actually a form of reverse economies of scale at work here. Because I was reading in the Bitmat press release, they raised $14.5 million for a payment processor. They're a bunch of former Visa guys. Mm-hmm. And they said that in some cases, these retailers are paying 10% to be accepting the credit cards after PCI compliance and the cost of hacks.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, like a hacker, do you want to steal a database with 3 million records, or do you want to steal a database with 60 million records or 76 million records? You want a Home Depot, Target, JP Morgan. And so you got these reverse economies of scale at work for their old, obsolete, held together by duct tape systems.
Mm-hmm.
And Bitcoin disintermediates all of that.
Right.
You don't need any of that, and you don't need to pay any fees.
See, on that note, our first product, Ultra Coin Value Trading System. The second product is a payment system, smart payments with self-escrowing capabilities, which means when you want to pay for something, you redisintermediate the payment processor in general and everybody connected to it. So you don't need Apple, you don't need Visa, you don't need American Express, you need the person you're paying.
And that's it.
That's it. The rails go through Bitcoin. You have a self-escrowing system, which prevents fraud, prevents any child's play, because the main reason people defraud others or cheat others is to take their money. If you have a guaranteed loss at the attempt of defrauding, that cuts the attempts to defraud down 98, 99.
Qui bono? Who stands to gain? Nobody. I mean, if you don't stand to gain, like, why are you going to be not only trying to defraud somebody and risking, like, upsetting somebody and potential legal liability? I mean, there's just no reason to be doing it.
Well, this is direct loss of capital by defrauding. The defrauding loses, and so that takes the incentive for fraud out.
And penalizes it.
And there are ways around that. Like, there are certain strategic players who will pay and take the loss to defraud others. But when you have a large system with anonymous payments, you don't know who you're cheating or defrauding. So even the strategic players are taken out picture, because it would take an awful lot of capital to defraud 450,000 people, because you're trying to get that one person in the crowd. And the third product is smart stocks, the smart bonds, where basically we are unraveling the swaps and enabling entities to sell one-legged swaps, which is basically selling equities or stocks. But they're smart equities, smart stocks, smart bonds. You can issue an equity that says automatically by default, its nature is to pay X% dividend every X time units quarterly, contingent upon so many dollars of profit. And that is guaranteed, written into the DNA of the actual stock. So someone who buys that stock knows they will get that. And you can have contingencies on, except for when. And then when you look at it, what would be considered the prospectus is actually written in stone. As long
written
as
in the blockchain.
Or written in the blockchain.
Written in code.
Right. So this hopefully should be a boon, and we're actually working with the legacy system, and we're going to try and get SEC acceptance. If this works out, we'll be doing this between 10 to 20% of the cost of conventional underwriting at most, and probably significantly less than that. Again, disintermediation. So we have the value trading, the brokerage, disintermediation. On top of that, you also have asset management. If you have swaps and you could specify exposures, instead of buying into a hedge fund, a mutual fund, you could buy into a fund that is controlled by somebody who doesn't get paid by commissions. He gets paid solely for his advice, so now he has no incentive to lie. You take that fraud incentive out, and he can give you specific slices of value depending on what you want. If you're the CEO of a steel smelting company, well, you have specific exposures to aluminum, to steel, to electricity, to coal, to certain interest rates, etc. GDP of the countries that you deal with and the country that you operate in. Laser precision in terms of exposure, and you create a portfolio
and
out of
risk
that.
management, like just able to carve it out just
exactly
atomically.
Yeah. So you have hedges, you have assets, you have cash flows specifically catered to your individual position. This could be done using the legacy method at about 10% per swap, and then you have to worry about counterparty risk, credit risk, etc., plus the fees. So value trading, payments, smart securities, and that is in general step one. We're taking out Wall Street. Then we have to go off the real estate, law, intellectual property. Healthcare is going to be very interesting. Get my bulletproof shield together.
Security services. Man, it's been a fascinating interview. Thanks so much for being with us, Reggie.
You're very welcome.
Be sure to get a copy of the free Bitcoin Guide at freebitcoinguide.com. Got a question or suggestion? Record your voice at bitcoin.kn. Don't be shy. To help the show, share bitcoin.kn with friends, post about it on Reddit, and otherwise spam the interwebs. Your iTunes comments and 5-star reviews are very important to us. Please continue tuning in to the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, where we release interviews with the top people in the Bitcoin world. Now take some choline and let that Bitcoin knowledge consolidate.